Howdy, partners. Welcome to the weekly show where we take a look at the league through the lens of the Lone Star State. Ban McMahon here with my compadre, Michael C. Wright. Mike, how you doing?
Great. How are you, man? You saw some rough stuff last night.
Listen, the Mavericks season continues to limp. We're about 20% of the way in. There's a lot going on off the court in Dallas, and we are going to get to that in a little bit. Unfortunately, Mike, there's a lot going on right now in the trainer's room in San
Yes.
Antonio. We're also going to get to the red hot Houston Rockets, but let's start out with the packed trainer's room in San Antonio. Um, Give us a brief breakdown and let's discuss how the Spurs kind of get through this period.
Okay. Well, the big one obviously is Victor Wembanyama. He's got the strained left calf, but I'm telling you, man, I've seen him. I've talked to him. He seems fine to me. From what I understand, just talking to people with the Spurs and just people in the organization, they are just being overly cautious here. They just don't want to take any chances. And you know how like around this time of year, people start saying, well, nobody's 100%. Well, they are not letting Victor play until he's back to 100%. That's just what they're going to do with him. And then,
Not with a calf.
yes, yes, especially with the calf, just because we've seen those things turn into something worse later on. With Steph Castle, he's got a hip flexor, and I'm told that for him, some of it is going to be pain tolerance. I don't know if you've ever had one as a former
Mm,
hooper. I've had one. I'm not a former hooper, but I've had one. It's a painful thing
yeah.
called a hip flexor, but you kind of feel it more in your groin.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it's a weird thing. And it is just one of those things. It hurts like crazy. It's a sharp pain. But again, a minor injury. They're going to reevaluate him in like a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then go from there. So, De'Aaron Fox has got to be the guy.
Yeah.
He's more than equipped to do.
So Castle week to week, Wimby's 2 to 3 weeks.
At least two.
Look, they took advantage of a soft little spot in the schedule, and they beat the Kings, and it wasn't easy, but they got a win over the Grizzlies. Harrison Barnes reminded me of some of his better moments in a Dallas uniform, where he's the go-to guy down the stretch. Hey, nice win. Any win without your two young stars is a good one. Three young stars because Dylan Harper's still out. To me, obviously, the one big bummer here is just look, you don't get to watch Wemby play.
Yeah.
Certainly hope Wemby gets to 65 games for award reasons. All NBA, Defense Player of the Year, maybe even MVP. To me, the biggest bummer from a team perspective here isn't that you might take a loss, a few losses, but Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox have barely been able to play together. I mean, how many? It was 5 games last year.
For
What?
this year.
Yeah, so 9 games total. They've yet to be able to establish any kind of chemistry. Um, and hopefully, Victor can get healthy and we can start getting a feel for what that duo can be and what kind of that dynamic looks like.
Right. And you saw him in just the 4 games that the duo, you saw them like in just the 4 games they played together. The timing was off. They were out of
Mhm.
sync because they didn't get any summer work together because De'Aaron Fox had that hamstring injury that kept him out of the early portion of the season. So yeah, that's a big deal. And it's not just them too, it's the group as a whole. Miss Johnson always talks about how hard it is to get cohesion. You
Yeah.
look at Oklahoma City. That's one of the few teams that is 100% cohesive. And so they like to get that kind of chemistry and cohesion, but you can't when those guys aren't on the floor.
Yeah, and Oklahoma City basically brought the entire roster back this
Yeah.
season. Certainly everybody in the rotation. The one guy didn't come back was a rookie last year who barely played. And then the year before that, they did make a couple of pretty significant additions, but they were role players. Caruso, he's going to come in, he's going to cause havoc defensively, and he's going to, take open shots and move the ball offensively. Hartenstein's kind of a glue guy
Yeah.
offensively. He's a screener, a passing big man, scores a little bit. Where De'Aaron Fox is a focal point, so it's a much bigger, I would say, learning curve or for a guy who's going to have the ball in his hands as much as he does to be able to come in and establish chemistry with the face of the franchise as well as every other guy on the roster.
That's right. And you got to learn, he's going to have to learn, okay, when do I defer to Vic? When do I take over? Those are all things that take place when you spend time on the court together in actual games. So, there's that. There's, like you said, Dylan Harper earlier. Like, he's going to be a focal point of this team, too, at some point. And so he's got to play, though. And, I think the Spurs are fine. Like you said, they're winning and they're without their guys. And that's, that was another thing that they wanted to do over the summer when they were sort of building this roster, is because last year, whenever Victor was off the floor, the Spurs just went off a cliff,
Yeah.
offensively and defensively. You go get Luke Cornett, and now you're looking a lot better without Vic on the floor, and Harrison Barnes, he's doing his thing. The old man can hoop, man. And and
He's developed a really good old man game too. He's so good with that D
yes,
cell. It's not even a D cell. He'll just do this style.
yep,
It's almost like you can hear it creaking.
he's strong too, man. Like, he's a strong dude. Like the way he was sort of manhandling Jaren Jackson on occasion the other night against the Grizzlies. And they were missing John Morant, who has what? A calf. That's what
Yeah,
everybody has these days.
it's like they're contagious.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Y'all got calves in Dallas going on right now?
I don't think. Well, yeah, AD, duh.
Yeah, that's the biggest one.
Yeah, AD's got one, and Dumont says he ain't ready no matter what he thinks. So Dumont, based on medical feedback from the Mavs staff, by the way.
Yes, yes. But that's a weird one, what you got going on in Dallas, man. Before, like, I was in bed last night watching the end of the Mavericks game. And bro, I pulled up your story and I read the first sentence and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna wait till after the game to read this thing. Like the first sentence told me everything I needed to know. I was like, okay, this is one of those kinds of stories. And that thing, man, whoo, we could talk for 2 hours about that.
Well, let's get into
Good.
it. So, the story I had on ESPN.com yesterday, it was basically about I'm not going to call it a love triangle, but the Mark Cuban, Nico Harrison, Patrick Dumont triangle, right? The power triangle. And, Cuban famously uh, blurted out to everybody who would listen when he sold the team, sold the majority share of the team, that he was still going to be in charge of basketball operations. He told the players and coaches and front office staff the same thing. It was never true. Breaking news. Just because Mark Cuban says something does not make it true. You
Did
know?
he believe it? I think he believed it.
I, it's honestly, it is so hard to tell what Cuban actually thinks is true and when he's just completely full of manure. Um, I think he was trying to speak it into existence. I think he was trying
Uh,
to almost do like power of personality, bully Dumont into, hey, I know you sold me the house. I got a little share of it. That includes the primary bedroom, you
that's
know?
the billionaire Jedi mind trick, I guess.
Yeah, but it didn't work. And then Nico Harrison took advantage of what was a power vacuum. And look, they went to Nico makes a couple trade deadline moves. They go to the finals. Patrick Dumont doesn't know much about basketball or, especially the NBA, the way the NBA business works. And, he's convinced, oh my goodness, this guy is a basketball genius. Like whatever Nico says, we're rolling with. His infamous line after the Luca trade in Luca, or I'm sorry, it should have been in Luca we trust. In Nico we trust. And obviously that's blown up in Dumont's face. It ended up blowing up in Nico's face. He got fired, and there's really no justification to keep him as a general manager uh, after 11 games this season. I would say even in the summer. Um, and it blew, the whole thing's blown up in Cuban's face, right? And so now you've got another power vacuum. And the dialogue between Cuban and Dumont at one point was minimal. It really picked up after the Cooper Flag lottery, right? The Mavs win the lottery. Cuban's the one who called Dumont and told him, calls him yelling and screaming. dialogue between them picks up. Cuban all summer long was lobbying, we got to fire Nico, we got to fire Nico. And he gained a little bit of credibility because he told him, and this is like, basketball one-on-one stuff, but he told Dumont, like, hey, this roster is terribly constructed. We're going to be a bad offensive team. We we don't have any shot creation. We don't have shooting. And lo and behold, the Mavericks have either been last or second last in offensive rating for all those reasons. So at this point, there's a GM by committee, and I would say there's a little Dumont's got a little inner circle basketball advisory committee.
Yeah.
The co-GMs on an interim basis, Michael Finley and Matt Riccardi, Jason Kidd, who has the most juice in the room, and Mark Cuban is in the room. He's back in the room. Now, back in the room and back in power. Oh, that's a lay. Those are different neighborhoods. That is a coast to coast through traffic transition type of deal there. Um, the way it was put to me is he's a consultant, not a decision maker, but he's back at the table. And how long he's at the table and how much influence he has is going to be a decision made by whoever Dumont ends up hiring or promoting to that top basketball decision maker spot.
That was a cold line to end that story too, man.
So here's a funny one for you. Probably the quote that most people hit me up about. And I'm paraphrasing, but like I said, Cuban was working hard to get Nico fired, along with thousands and thousands of Mavericks fans. It's not like Cuban's was the one. Hey, maybe we should do that. And it was like, oh, hold on, a good idea. But Cuban was pretty relentless in his lobbying behind the scenes. And with Nico out, like there's a chance for Cuban to get a little bit of juice back, to go from
Yeah.
at least zero to something. And so uh, I was told, you know, he's walking around on air right now. Cuban's floating in his Skechers.
I can see it. Like I visualize that.
So the
I
one
told you
thing,
to.
the one thing Cuban said to me yesterday, he didn't hit me at all about the story. Yeah, I was, anytime you write anything that is maybe not the most flattering about him. Like there's been plenty of times where my email or my phone's blown up from Cuban. He didn't hit me at all. But on his way to his seat before the game, where we sit, where I'm
Mhm.
like the second row of those media seats, but and then there's a little area where he walks by. So he stops and he says, Tim. And he's yelling at me, and it's loud, there's all the music, and so I can't really hear. And he's yelling, Skechers, Skechers, and I couldn't. But I was like, what? I thought he was saying dentures, and I was like, what the hell are you talking about? But he was mad that somebody implied that he wore Skechers. The reason it was a funny line is he used to have a Skechers endorsement deal back in the day.
Mhm.
So that apparently was his biggest beef in the story. Although he told other people this was a funny thing. He told the Athletic and then the Morning News because there is a line in the story that says, "Hey, team sources say they're going to explore the trade market for AD," which
Right.
like, bruh, look at the situation. You got a chance to pivot and build around Cooper Flag. You better, like, come on. Anyways, so people are even. Cuban says we're not trading AD. We're going to try to win, or we want to win, or some whatever it is, which is hilarious on multiple fronts. One, this coming to you from the guy who, among many lies, said he was still in charge of basketball operations when he wasn't. And by the
Right.
way, he's still not. So, track record of honesty, not his call. And Mark Cuban, the man who over the last 7 years has twice paid large six-figure fines for either tanking so blatantly it was embarrassing in the league or
Right.
bragging about tanking, thinks this is the year that the Mavericks should win? The one year they've got to pick between now and 2031?
Right.
And they're
In a
four,
good draft too.
yeah, and a loaded draft.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Cuban doesn't he always manages to provide content. I'll give him that.
Yeah. I just feel terrible for those players though. Like they are just stuck in the middle of this. And it's
Well,
just like, come on, man. Like, you at the free throw line, they screaming, fire
okay.
Nico,
But listen, Nico's been fired. That
right?
stuff has been eliminated. And this story was like my last kind of bow on the Nico era, right? Or era, whatever you want to call it.
Error. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So that part's gone. They've got to, and there's going to be, I'm told, a comprehensive search. It'll include some internal candidates. There's going to be external candidates. I don't know exactly who it's going to be in the shot caller position in the front office. Cuban's pushed Dennis Lindsay. There's who, by the way, would be a very good candidate. Um, they're going to interview several people, and we'll see how that plays out. But so for the players, it's just like hopefully they can not worry about the front office like that. That's a Dumont thing. He got to figure that out. What they are is stuck in this weird phase for the rest of the season where there are two timelines, and you got to
Yep.
now it's got to be about one timeline. 18-year-old Cooper Flag, you got a second chance to build around a generational talent. It's a gift. Don't screw that up. Got to get that right. So AD is going to be in trade rumors. They've got to get him healthy, back on the floor. Show teams, okay, hey, he's healthy. He's still AD, and then see what the market looks like. The other big question here is with Kyrie. Kyrie is working to get healthy. I'm told in very, very clear terms, Kyrie wants to play. He wants to come back. He's preparing for that. I don't, I'm pretty certain that the Mavericks are going to kind of try to gently say, hey, let's make sure you're really right. Let's, no need to rush here, because but they want Kyrie back next season. They want him to be the voice in that locker room, the mentor, the point guard, the leader, all those things. So, um, you know, I don't know how things are going to play out with Kyrie for the rest of the season. That's going to be a very interesting thing to watch.
For sure. And I think that they're doing themselves a disservice if I don't know. I just think you gotta make that man sit down some way. You gotta convince him. Convince him of a brighter future or something. But just I don't know. I just wouldn't want to risk getting that guy hurt again in what's sort of a lost season here.
Well, that and frankly, the worst thing that can happen for the Mavericks is they squeeze into the 10 seed or something like that. They've got one chance to get a high lottery pick to pair with Cooper Flag because, as we've talked about many times, they don't control their draft picks from 27 to 30.
Right.
This is their one shot in what is supposed to be, at least through the top six, a loaded draft. It competitive losses ain't a bad thing for the Mavericks this year. They
Like
suck,
last night.
you know.
Like last night, that was the strangest thing. They couldn't make free throws, couldn't miss free throws. And then at the end, the offensive foul. I'm like, come on, man. They just could not catch a break.
They
It's
draw up,
like a microcosm of this team season so far.
yeah, they draw up J Kidd draws up a great play. They execute it perfectly until
The
Brandon Roy.
wraparound.
And
Yeah.
it was a full chicken wing. The argument would be did Shamit
Foul
foul
happened before
out?
though.
But yeah, whatever. Again, those down to the wire losses in the long run might be the best thing for this franchise because
Yeah.
the one thing. Cooper Flag was sick last night, but you want him in competitive situations. You don't want games like, they went to Minnesota on a back-to-back after playing overtime and double overtime the previous two games and just had no gas and just got blown out. Nobody benefits from playing in blowouts. You want him with the chance to, either succeed or fail. You want him with the chance to learn in close games down the stretch. And then if you look up at the end of the season and you're, 27 and whatever that number, 55, and you end up with the fifth slot in the lottery, sixth slot in the lottery, that, ultimately that long view, that's what you really want.
Yeah.
And then they've got to try to be as good as possible next year because they no longer benefit from being bad. And you want to have Cooper Flag feeling like, hey, we're growing something here. We've got
Yep.
a chance. This is a place where I can be part of a sustainable contender, but they've got to get a lot of things right. And it's going to be, um, it's going to be this year's pick is going to be crucial. And then from there, they're going to kind of have to build from the middle. So yeah, we'll see.
It's fascinating, man. It's just the rise and fall, like it just all happening so fast. It's just amazing, man. I don't know how like right now, if I were you, I'd probably be in bed. It's just too much. It's just too much. It's too high, too low.
It's been a lot, and honestly,
Yeah.
the thing is, how our jobs work. We roam around. I haven't been able to get out and do a whole lot outside of Dallas so far this season because it's just been such chaos and so high profile. Like the Mavericks are one of the worst teams in the league, but also one of the highest interest teams in the league so far this season. So that's not a good place to be. And again, Dirk said it on Amazon Prime. They really should have just gone ahead and moved on from Nico this summer. They didn't. Now that they've done that, it's they're in limbo in the front office, and I don't know how long it's going to last. This is very well could be like this through the trade deadline. So you've kind of got this temporary advisory council, I would say, that might be making a massive decision for your franchise in terms of an AD trade.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like, how many teams are actively calling the Mavs right now?
Again, it's November. It's not January. The trade deadline is not till
Yeah.
early February. I will say this, a healthy AD, and I've talked to people around the league about this, a healthy AD might just be able to tilt the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. Yeah,
Ooh. Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
in the East, it's pretty wide open. Put them on a Detroit, put them on an Atlanta, just to spitball a couple of teams here. If that guy's healthy, he might be the guy that kind of pushes a team over the top in terms of being able to make a run through the East.
True.
He's got to get healthy. He's got to get in shape. But uh, it's AD will always be looked at in Dallas as ugh, that's the face of what we got back for the worst trade ever, right?
Right.
He's a top 75 all-time player. He's still a hell of a player.
Yeah.
He just
Uh,
doesn't fit in what they've got to prioritize in Dallas, which is building around an 18-year-old.
Yeah. Well, but that's what I meant when I was like, you just feel for the players. Like AD, it's not like he campaigned to get traded there.
He didn't
It's
ask for
what
this.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just what happened. And he has to deal with the fallout. And that's terrible, man. Like, I don't know. Like, we don't, I don't know, lend enough credence to, just the disruptions and how they just affect a player's overall well-being, his performance, everything, man.
Yeah. And we haven't had a chance to talk to AD since he was injured. Um, there's obviously a lot going on right now. Nico was fired. He's hurt. Dumont's, basically not letting him get back on the court, overruling AD's personal medical staff. Now there's the trade uh, talks, and by talks I mean media report, my
Right.
reporting, Sham's reporting. Um, when we get a chance to talk to him, one thing I'm going to ask is like, hey, it's been a rough go for you here in Dallas. Like, would you prefer to be moved at this point? And I don't know what his answer will be. If I'm in his Nikes, I
I'm
would
out
be
of
like,
there.
you know what? Yeah, I think a fresh start would probably be best for everybody. I don't know how he feels.
I
So
don't either. But I mean, I would imagine that's how he feels, though, because he's like you said, he's the face of you trading a generational talent in
yeah.
Luka Doncic, and like it's just I
And
don't know.
and to be clear, I've never sensed any animosity from fans in his direction here in Dallas, but he's not embraced for the reasons you just said, you know.
Yeah,
Hey, we keep doing this to the Rockets. All they do is win, and we like squeeze
All
them.
they do.
We're going to lead a show soon with discussion of the Houston Rockets. Last night, a really good win on the road in Cleveland, and I thought the thing about the Rockets, they are the number one team in the league, but this is still an Ime Udoka team. And last night, it was classic. They went with that big lineup.
Yep.
It was big on big bully ball. Our bigs are meaner and bigger and badder than your bigs, and just killed them on the glass. KD overall has been, ridiculously efficient. Hall of Famer KD last night, though,
Dropping
another
30.
game where, he had an off shooting night and they're still able to pull out a win because the Rockets are such a dominant offensive rebound team that missed shots aren't necessarily a bad thing for them.
They
They just go
don't.
get them.
They just bludgeon you on the glass, man. It's just it's amazing. And then Steven Adams, I mean, like I was, we've talked about this. Like, can he play this many minutes? He's averaging 21 minutes, almost
Yeah,
22.
and they'll throw Capella out there. And by the way, Capella's killing it on the
Yeah,
offensive glass.
yeah.
The only better boxing out I've seen in the NBA than Steven Adams does on a regular basis was what Nico Harrison was doing to Mark Cuban for a while there when, when Cuban had no say. But back to the Rockets. I mean, seriously, they are the addition of KD was that massive influx of skill that they desperately needed. You
Yeah.
know, but dude,
Just an upgrade over Jalen Green. And that's not no knock on Jalen. I mean,
no,
yeah,
KD's a Hall of Famer in year 19. There's not been
right.
drop off. It's insane. And Alpi keeps getting
Oh,
better and better and more skilled and stronger. But
confident.
it's a team that has become a great offense team, and we're 20% of the way in the season. They're still leading the league in offense. But the DNA is still toughness.
Yes. And but what, what I'm like when I'm watching like Reed Shepard, he's starting to walk around with that Houston Rockets swagger.
Oh yeah.
That's what you're starting to see. And that's all Ime. That's all Ime, man.
And that jumper is pretty.
It is, man. And like I said, it just hits the bottom of the net. And it's like quiet when it goes through. You're just like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Like,
And Amin Thompson is one of my favorite players to watch. And I just, in talking, I know you've talked to him, you had a great story on the Thompson twins last year. His personality off the floor versus his personality on the floor are such polar opposites.
the kid.
He's a very quiet,
Yeah.
polite kid, mild-mannered. And then on the floor, he like it's like the email takes over.
Switch. Turn the
He's a
switch on.
ruthless competitor.
Yeah.
He's out there tossing Tyler Hero around last year. He's getting in the mix of stuff. But man, when we talk about their offensive rebound, hey, don't forget the fact that the point guard is a 6'7" dude who looks like a freaking pass rusher and can jump through the roof and will go in there and stick his nose in there. And they're so different, but like him bringing the ball up, either
Yeah.
get him in their office and then relocating to the dunker spot and just wreaking havoc as an offensive rebounder and as a finisher. It's
It's almost 90s basketball, almost like the way they play. It's just the physicality, because obviously they play pretty fast. But yeah, Amin is, and he's just getting better and better.
yeah.
Like I always thought that if he got a little better at finishing at the rim, well, he's there now.
Oh, yeah.
He's there now. And so, like throughout this season, he's just going to keep on improving little elements of his game. And, just he's an elite athlete.
He's maybe the most athletic guy in the league, tied with his brother. But like he's up there.
Yeah.
He's a top 1% athlete in the league, no question about it.
And that's saying a lot.
Yeah,
It's saying a lot when you talk about all the talent in the NBA. Like, but I agree with you. He is probably top 1%
yeah,
athletic.
and they're still kind of getting to know KD, but again, KD's empowered them. Say, dude, this ain't just about like getting the ball to me and getting out of the way. I'm going to let you know when I want the rock. I'm going
Yeah.
to get my points. But but hey, how many times has Alpi made big shots down the stretch? Or
Boy.
and but like
And
the other
he's such
night,
a hub offensively, though, man.
yes.
It's just like I was telling you the other day. I'm like you watching him play, and Alpy's down on the block, operating on the block, and you see the guy that's on KD. He's tempted to go help. He
Mm-mm.
wants to go help, and I'm sitting there like, "Don't do it! Don't do it!" Takes a step over there. Alpy throws it out to the wing. Bam, 3-pointer, KD, and you're just like, try to tell you, don't do it.
Or or you know, you get the little lob to a
Just
man,
come in, yeah,
or a man will get in the corner like, don't turn your head because he will cut to the basket, and when there's a little bit of space, that chemistry between Şengün and Thompson is big time.
yeah, it is. And I mean, and he'll hit that three from the corner too. Like, he's got to get better as a 3-point shooter, but you can tell he's a lot more confident in that corner than he used to be. So
Yeah. And look,
it's
if he becomes league average as a 3-point shooter, even just if he's a 35% 3-point shooter, if he gets to that point,
trouble. Trouble.
yeah.
Oh, we got to give Josh Okogie his props too.
Yes.
That dude, like, I think, I was talking to Doe a couple weeks ago, Dorian Finney-Smith, and he was like,
Mhm.
that's our wild child right there. And he is, man. He defensively, he's so good on ball, man. And I did not expect that from him. I didn't see that from him in Phoenix. I don't think.
Well, and the thing about him is it does allow them to at times give him in a little bit of a break from chasing around the other team's best player. That's
Yeah.
still his primary responsibility, but he doesn't have to do it every single possession that he's on the court. And then the question with the Koji is like, okay, is he gonna offensively, are they gonna have to guard him on the perimeter, or is he gonna junk everything up? Well, they're the number one offense in the league, and he's been starting.
Yeah.
And sometimes these minimum signings make a massive difference, and that's been the case. And honestly, like they knew Doe was going to miss some time to start the season. It's been
Mm-hmm.
a little bit longer than they anticipated. It hasn't bit them because Okoji's has been able to play such a significant role.
Yeah. I was surprised when they played the Spurs. They put him on Vic. And I'm
Well, because that's the thing. Like the guys who've had the most success against Vic are the wide body guys who can get underneath them.
get under him, pester him. Yeah, for sure. That like they would put Dylan Brooks on him, when he was still in Houston.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's Houston is a fascinating team to watch. I enjoy watching them. And by the way, sources tell me that you are not missed in Houston. Just letting
Oh, well, I know who your sources are, and I'd say, as
you.
is the case with Cuban, just because they say it doesn't make it so. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. You know what, Mike? I'm much more of like like a banging big man than I am a point guard. So I do screw up on like the hosting stuff in this show.
No, you got
I
it, baby.
I know, but here's the thing: I have yet to publicly acknowledge, much less thank our producer, Nate Kraft, who is doing amazing work on the show. So I apologize for that.
He sets the tone. He
Yes.
sets
And
the tone in the
I mean,
morning. Yeah.
and he always comes on with these god awful, ugly shirts to kind of, if we're tired, it kind of wakes us up. But
Yeah.
he's making this thing go. He's the man, putting all the highlights together and all that kind of stuff, doing a phenomenal job. So definitely thank you to Nate. Thank you to you, Michael Country, right? We will be back next week, every Thursday. Got a lot going on in the state of Texas in the NBA. Some real good, some not so much, but it's all pretty interesting.
It's always fun to watch, man. Always.
Not fun to watch, maybe fun to follow if it's Dallas for the time being. But we will be back next Thursday. Thanks for watching. Adios, amigos.
Wanna try to boast at what I look like. Pick them James Harden where I pull up long range. No, Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. It's NBA on ESPN time.